Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome you to another edition of Game Time with Kenny. Yes, Game Time with Kenny is back in the house, and we are ready to rock and roll today. And today we're going to be talking about game number 5 between the Toronto Raptors and the Milwaukee Bucks. Well, this is the swing game of the series. Well, you would have thought that after the first two games, that Milwaukee had a chance to sweep the Toronto Raptors. But now Toronto has the momentum. And so far, each of the first 4 games, the home team has won all 4 games. Now, Kawhi Leonard and Lowry combined for 7 points in the first half of game number 4, as the Raptors bench outscored the Bucks bench 28-8 during that time. And it was a one-sided affair as far as scoring off the bench. But how the Toronto Raptors were able to still win game 4, despite Lowry and Leonard only having a combined 7 points in the first half of that game. That was incredible. But you have to give Toronto a lot of credit. They're playing tenacious defense and getting the turnovers, and that has just been an amazing thing. Well, before we continue in the NBA playoffs, let's talk about the NHL real quick. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals is set. The St. Louis Blues, after winning games 5 and 6, outscoring the San Jose Sharks by a score of 10-1, as they've scored 5 goals in the last 2 games each. And San Jose during that stretch only scored 1, and that was in game 6. So, wow, that was amazing how the Sharks, they could not win game 5 and they could not win game 6. They gave up 5 goals in each of the last 2 games, and that is just not the way the Sharks play. And they'll have to think of the offseason and what they got to do to get better. But it will be the St. Louis Blues and the Boston Bruins playing in the Stanley Cup Final Game 1 in Boston on Memorial Day. The last time the St. Louis Blues were in the Stanley Cup was in 1970. And in 1970, that's when the St. Louis Blues last played a Stanley Cup. And they get the Boston Bruins again this time. And this time, it will be in Boston for game number 1. So when you now let's go back to the NBA playoffs. So obviously, Kawhi Leonard against Giannis. Giannis was limited to 12 points in game 3. He had a little bit of a better game in game 4, but I'll tell you, the second half of that game, it was incredible. Think about this. The Toronto Raptors scored 65 points in the first half. In the second half, they scored 55. So they were about 10 points off from what they were in the first half of game number 4. And again, the 3-point shooting is there. And they've been hitting a good percentage, but in game 3, both teams were not that good from the 3-point range. But it looks like there was a little bit better in game number 4. But what about today? What's going to take place in Milwaukee in the swing game? Will it be that the home team is going to win tonight and the rest of the series? If there is, then Milwaukee will take it in 7 games. But what about the Toronto Raptors? Toronto is saying, okay, we know how to defend Giannis now. We need to do it for 2 more games, and then we go to the NBA Finals to play the Golden State Warriors. Well, that's what they're thinking. They want to go and take game 5 tonight because they don't want to come back and being down 3-2, having to try to win the last two against the Milwaukee Bucks. So what do they got to do? Kawhi Leonard, Lowry, they've got to get hot in the first half. They cannot be a combined 7 points in this game and probably expect to win in Milwaukee. So they've got to shoot a lot better, and they've got to score more points between them. So that would be the first thing. They've got to play great defense as they did the past 2 games, and they just got to double team Giannis, whatever they got to do, and they've got to continue it for 2 more games. Can they do it? I believe they can. And I said that each game the home team is going to win in this series. But you know what? I'm going to have a second prediction. And I'm going to go against my first prediction. And I'm going to say that the Toronto Raptors are going to pull off the upset tonight in Milwaukee. And they're going to win game number 5. And then come back to Toronto and wrap it up in 6 games. I'm going to go against, like I said, my prediction, and I'm going to predict that. So let's see if that happens, or is my first prediction going to be the correct one? But I'll tell you one thing. The longer this series goes, the more rest the Golden State Warriors will have. And we're hoping to see if Kevin Durant and Iguodala can both come back. And what about DeMarcus Cousins? Can he come back? Well, let's find out. Well, I'll tell you, when you talk about the Warriors, especially against the Portland Trailblazers, think about this. The Golden State Warriors are the first team in NBA playoff history to have 3 consecutive games back to back to back when they came back from more than a 15-point deficit. Now, you're talking about the Portland Trailblazers. You have this team down in the second half, 3 straight games in a row, starting from game 2. And you can't close out a team when you're up by almost 20 points in each of those games. How you allow the Warriors, a defending champion, to come back and then to sweep you, and then to do it on your own home court in Portland. And then with Damian Lillard missing the shot that could have won the game for them, a 3-pointer. It was just amazing. Amazing turnaround. And I don't think they really recovered after game 2, after blowing that big lead. And even in double overtime, loss in game 3, that was amazing. Even though Giannis fouled out of that game, the Warriors, I'm sorry. I had my mind on Milwaukee there for a minute, so I apologize for that. But even the Trailblazers, for them to go to double overtime and then to lose that game, and then you have the next game going to overtime as well. So in the last 2 games, the Warriors and the Trailblazers, they played 3 overtimes. And the Warriors end up winning both of them. And the Trailblazers are left in the offseason thinking, okay, if I'm the Trailblazers, if I'm in a playoff game and I'm up by more than 15 in the second half of a game, I cannot let a team like the Golden State Warriors get back in transition, and I cannot commit turnovers, give them easy transition baskets, and then them get hot and Steph Curry, Draymond Green and others hitting from downtown. But I'll tell you what was a real turning point in game 3 in the second half. Draymond Green's energy that he played with. The whole team was feeding off of that energy. And that was just amazing to see the energy that he had in game 3. So The Warriors with this rest, there's a good side and there's a bad side to having so much rest. The good side is that any injuries that the team has, they have a chance to get healed and then come back. So hopefully that's going to be the case for Iguodala, Durant, and Cousins for them. If they can have all three of those players back for this NBA Finals, that will be tremendous for them. The Milwaukee Bucks, they've got to find a way to get the momentum back. How did they do it? After two games like that, and one of them you lose in overtime, which was a double overtime game in game 3. So you lose a game in double overtime, and then you get blown out, as you did, 120 to 102 in game number. How did they turn it around? They've got to go back to playing like they did the first two games at home. That's how they got to turn it around. But will they? Or will the Toronto Raptors, with the momentum that they have now and how they played the defense, can they sustain that for 96 more minutes? 2 games, 48 minutes per game. We'll see what unfolds at the Bradley Center in Milwaukee tonight. It'll be amazing as TNT will have continuing coverage of the NBA's Eastern Conference Final, as Marv Albert will be at the play-by-play caller of that game tonight in Milwaukee. I want you to know, with the Warriors' sweep of the Portland Trailblazers, Steve Kerr has now, in his career, 6 times has his team swept an opponent in the playoffs. He is behind Greg Popovich of San Antonio, who has 9, and Phil Jackson, who has 8. So, with 4 more sweeps, he will surpass Greg Popovich as the top head coach to have the most sweeps in NBA playoff history. He could have number 7 if they sweep either the Milwaukee Bucks or the Toronto Raptors. But I'll tell you one thing. This is probably going to be the toughest stretch, toughest opponent that the Golden State Warriors will have in this 5-year stretch right now that they have been into the NBA Finals. 5 years in a row. What team can you say out there has gone 5 straight years into the NBA Finals? They've won 3 of the past 4. Again, only in 2016 did they lose to the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James and Kyrie Irving being on the same team. And I'll tell you what was a changer in that. The Warriors had a 2-0 lead after they won the first 2 in Oakland. Game 3, they did not play their type of basketball. The Warriors' mindset was probably thinking, okay, we're going to get in here and we're going to win these 2 games, and it's not going to be that difficult, and we're going to win it. When they came out and played that game, it was not their basketball. And subsequently, after that Game 3 loss, they ended up losing 4 straight games, and they lose in 6 games to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, if you're the Warriors, and if you have to go to Milwaukee, if Milwaukee wins this series and they go there, they cannot play like they did in Game 3 of the 2016 NBA Finals in Cleveland at the Quicken Loans Arena. They've got to go in there and they've got to play like they really mean it. give it all they got for 48 minutes. They cannot get a split in Milwaukee. They have to take the first two out there and then try to go up 3-0. In NBA playoff history, any team that has been down 3-0 has never come back to win a 7-game series and win 4 straight. There's been 136 times that has happened in NBA history where a team has been up 3-0, and still to today's date, they have yet to lose a series. But what about the Yankees and Red Sox in baseball? You talk about the curse of the Bambino. You remember the time when the Red Sox, think about this, in Game 4, I changed that whole series around because when that double was hit in that game, that changed the whole momentum of that entire series around. And then the Red Sox, who were down 3-0, they came back and they won 4 straight. And the curse of the Bambino had been broken. And the Yankees are left wondering what just happened. Right in front of our faces, what just happened here? We were up 3-0. We had all the momentum, we had everything, and then this one hit changed the entire complexity of that series. And they end up losing 4 straight. Today, I want you to know that it is going to be a physical game in Milwaukee. It's going to be. And it's going to be, I believe, brutal. But in the end, I hope it's a tight game. I hope it's not a blowout. But may the best team win tonight. And then whoever wins is only got to win one of the last 2 to advance to play the Golden State Warriors. Well, I wanted to thank you for watching this edition of Game Time with Kenny today. Please subscribe to this channel, and just please email your friends, send a text message, post it on Twitter, Facebook, any social media sites that you have. We'd love to hear from you. Send us a comment and let us know how we can improve this program, how we can change it, how we can make it more unique than any other sports program that you view out there right now. Thank you for watching today, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.